Hey, welcome to the Mind Hacking Happiness Podcast, Episode 3. Today, we are going to talk about fear and the only way that you can remove fear from your life and live a fearless existence. The only way, literally. We're about to talk about it. Stand by.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain.
When you die on your deathbed, you will receive total consciousness.
I'm not trying to sell you on this idea in the sense of converting you to it. I want you to play with it. I want you to think of its possibilities. I'm not trying to prove it. I'm just putting it forward as a possibility of life to think about.
Welcome to Mind Hacking Happiness. Calm the fuck down and take your seats.
The only way to get rid of it is to accept it as it is right now.
Some people say a science of consciousness is impossible. I think that we may need one or two ideas that initially seem crazy before we can come to grips with consciousness.
Hey, welcome to the Mind Hacking Happiness Podcast. My name is Sean Webb. I just got back from a trip to the Amazon with 2 Navy SEALs, and we did some amazing things down there. We're going to tell you about that in the future episodes, and we may even fire up a brand new podcast called 2 SEALs and a Walrus for elongated discussions about consciousness with these Navy SEALs and potential guests, etc. It's going to be an amazing time because these guys are funny as hell constantly, and our senses of humor mesh well, so we're going to have fun with that. So today, though, I'd like to talk about something that came up during our trip into the Amazon jungle, because, of course, again, I said I took that trip with a couple of Navy SEALs who have a unique relationship with the emotion of fear, in that it is their job to be able to overcome fear quite regularly and have a comfortable relationship with fear. And we had some in-depth discussions about fear, but I wanted to have a discussion with you today so that you could have a better understanding of your fear and understand the clear path to be able to take to dominate your fear and overcome your fear, especially when it starts to inhibit you in being able to make the decisions and take the actions to make your life awesome. Because one of the things that we do as human beings is we succumb to fear. We say, I don't know if I want to open that business because I might fail. Or I don't know if I want to approach that pretty girl or that handsome guy because they might reject me. And those are examples of fear that inhibit us from our life being potentially epic, where that business does amazing things for us and we become an entrepreneur, or that guy or girl responds positively, that you're just exactly the quirkiness mix that they were looking for. And we could otherwise miss out on some amazing experiences based on fear. You know, you're standing at the top of that bungee tower and you don't want to step off, and it's going to be an amazing experience, and you're going to be really happy that happened after you did it, but you just can't take that step off of that bungee tower because it's like, no, I don't want to take the chance that this is going to snap and I'm going to land headfirst in the ravine or whatever it is. So I wanted to explain to you about fear and exactly how it works and exactly what you can do to overcome it, because there is only one way in the world to overcome fear. And that's just a simple fact. And that's based on how fear works in your mind. And it only works one way for all human beings. It is a nervous system response that is the same, just as your heart beats the same as anyone else's, just as your liver cleans out the toxins in your body the same as everyone else's. The emotion of fear arises in everyone the exact same way. Now, it doesn't always arise in the exact same levels as everyone else, and your fears aren't the same fears as everyone else, and those differences are determined by the customizable variables within your mind that create your fear that is different from others. And we're going to discuss the variables themselves so that you can start to look at those variables and analyze those variables and say, hey, let's change those variables. So maybe I can reduce the amount of fear that I have in my life. Now, fear is an emotion. Fear is universally described as, psychologically speaking, the emotion that we feel or the reaction that we have when we perceive a potential threat to self. And all psychologists everywhere pretty much agree with that basic definition of fear. And that is not new information, frankly. What is new information are the granular variables that come together to create our unique instances of fear. Like, why are you afraid of spiders and I'm not afraid of spiders? Those things are determined by some unique variables that we have within our mind. But before we discuss those, let's back up a second and discuss what emotions are from a basic perspective. Now, emotions, as defined by a USC researcher, and he wrote a book, Self Comes to Mind. His name is Antonio Damasio. He defines emotions as programs within the brain or the mind that are designed to urge us into action. Now, they are a subconscious process. They're created below our waking awareness, and then they arise into our waking awareness after they're already created. And they are indeed, I think, programs or responses from our subconscious awareness that help urge us into action. It's information being pushed up to the top for us to review and then make a decision on. And so in the instance of fear, whenever you fear anything in the world, whenever you feel a nervousness about anything, whenever you fear a panic or experience a panic about anything, it is always something from your subconscious being thrown up into your waking awareness to say, hey, there could be a potential trouble here. Let's look at this. Your nervous system is a basic comparator. Every piece of information that you'll ever get from your nervous system is basically the difference between looking at two different things and creating the equation of the difference between those two things, and then it sends you that information. For instance, when you put your hand on the stove, it doesn't say, hey, this is 160 degrees hot. We might want to remove our hand from the stove. No, what it's saying is, hey, this is much hotter than it was a second ago. And it hurts, and cells are being damaged, and we need to remove our hand from the heat. And in fact, the message doesn't even reach your brain. You don't even get input. A nervous system cell in your backbone makes the decision to say, hey, let's move that hand away from the heat so that we don't destroy any more cells based on the difference in heat from one moment to the next. And one of the cool things that I discovered as a kid was when I went to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, Illinois, there were these two coils, one with warm water and one with cold water, and they were intermixed, one right next to another, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, or warm, cold. And then when you put your hand on it, they were just close enough together that it fooled the nervous system into thinking, God, that's hot. And you put your hand on it and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be burned. But the reality was when you put your finger on each one of the individual coils, you could feel the hottest was just warm. And the cold was actually pretty cold. But the difference in temperature between the two was what your nervous system was, or what my nervous system was reporting to get that super hot effect. Well, that's all the nervous system does is report on two different things. And so when it's creating the emotion of fear within you, it's basically just, looking at and comparing two different things in your mind. What are those things? I'm about to tell you. Okay, so every emotion that you have, every emotion that you ever will have, every emotion that you ever have had from the time of your birth to the time of your death is based on two different variables coming together in your mind and being compared. The first variable is your perception of what it is that's going on around you. It's just simply taking in all the things that are around you. You're looking for threats over here, over here, over here, over here. Could this be a threat? Could this be a threat? Could this be a threat? And your perception then creates an appraisal process of, okay, so this baseball flying past me is not a threat, but this baseball flying at my head is a threat because, the definition of you is potentially at risk, which is fear is a potential threat to self. And so you duck almost subconsciously without your consent. You duck out of the way, you flinch, startle reflex, etc. Well, the second thing is just exactly what I spoke of a second ago. The second thing that your brain is looking at is the list of things that needs to be protected, right? Your limbic system's always looking around for threats, but then a second question must be asked. A threat to what exactly? Right? When I look at a leafcutter ant, do I know that I have leaves? If I have leaves, then that leafcutter ant is a threat to me. If I don't have leaves, then leafcutter ant's probably cool and we're probably going to get along just fine. Well, there creates a necessity for a sense of self within the mind. Now, your sense of self is, of course, your body, because when the baseball flies at you, you don't even really need to think about it to duck out of the way. It's an involuntary response, autonomic response, and other things then can also be attached to your idea of self. And from that point forward, you start to attach to, your idea of what you see when you look in the mirror. So, if you see a snake on the ground, you get nervous because that snake is a threat to your body self. But then that gets more complex over time. As we learn who and what we are, different ideas get attached to that idea of self that we have in our mind that becomes that laundry list of things that then must be protected. So when someone says, "You're a jerk, Sean," well, my name is attached to my sense of self and my whole, aura of existence, my personality, etc., all gets wrapped up into that. So when somebody says I'm a jerk and they attack me, then I start to worry, wow, am I a jerk? Am I being a jerk? Holy cow, that's a miniature version of fear that is coming out of me. Or I start to attach to ideas of the people around me. So if other people around me start to get sick or a potential threat to them occurs, I can feel fear for them because they then become a portion of my self map. They have become a portion of my definition of existence that then must be defended, must be protected at all costs. And if any perception comes in from around the world that is associated with one of those people that I'm connected to, then I start to feel an emotional response associated with that, including fear, okay? I also get attached to ideas of politics, ideas of religion, ideas of my life story, ideas of my stuff. Oh my God, there's a tornado back at home, at the house, has all my stuff blown away, and I'm afraid of losing all my shit, right? And the same is true for you. You have a definition of self in your mind that, by the way, isn't the true story, okay? All of that stuff that you think is you in your mind isn't you. But you have this thing that governs all your emotions within you, and it's called yourself, and it's your laundry list of definition of who and what you think you are. And so, although we've understood fear for thousands of years, literally, we never really understood our individual fears and what caused the little worries, what caused the little moments of panic, what caused the fear that our project at work isn't going to be received well by management, right? And so now with this new definition of self, which I came up with a couple of decades ago, but which science has now completely supported, that's exactly how it works, we have this laundry list of understanding of all the things that we attach to that, we then have emotions about, including fear, such as when we're attached to our sports team. And they are 4th and 1 on the goal line, and it is the end of the game, and we are not certain that they are going to score or lose the game, and that worry comes up, that fear, that anxiety comes up. That is associated with our attachment of that team on our self map. That's our favorite team, and we now have a perception that is going to potentially devalue or attack or bring that team into threat based on what happens in the next few seconds. And so we're on the edge of our seat. That's how fear works. Anytime you have a perception that then potentially threatens something on our self map. So this is our self map, and every one of these little dots is something, an idea, a person, an attachment, a favorite color that you have. And when someone says, wow, green has been identified as the color for pedophiles, you're like, fuck, my favorite color is green. Are you serious? And then you start to worry. Well, you have all of these things on your self map that is created in your mind. Again, this is bullshit. This is not really you, but this is how your mind works. that then comes into threat, and then you start to create fear. So now, there is one thing that you can do to reduce fear in your life. Your answer to creating a fearless life, your answer to dominating fear, and this is everyone's answer, by the way. There is no alternate option for this. There is no other strategy that's going to work, period. Because this is how fear works. This is how fear is defined. And if you try anything else, you are going to fail. You have to adjust the variables that come together to create your fear in the first place, period. That is the one path to living a fearless life, is to change the variables that are processed in your subconscious, because you can't just consciously think, oh, I'm just not going to be afraid of that bear, right? Or I'm not going to be afraid of this project not going well at work, right? You cannot make that discernment. You cannot make that decision. It's a process that happens below your waking awareness in your subconscious, and you're simply handed the fear. So you're not helpless, though, because the reality is you can change the variables at your subconscious level that your subconscious uses to then create the fear. And if you change those variables, you change your whole emotional landscape, including reducing and removing fear from your life altogether. And that is not impossible, by the way. They have a computer readout of an fMRI of an ancient, well, not ancient, but an older master, Master Mathieu Ricard, who is a French Buddhist monk who proved, laying in an fMRI machine while they played him loud noises unexpectedly in his headphones, that he has removed his startle reflex, which is the most quickest, primitive fear reaction that we all have. Boom! Thunder strike outside. Whoa, we jump a little bit. He doesn't have that anymore because he has removed his fear response from himself. Period. And you can do it. I've done it. There are other people who have done it. You don't have to believe me. We can just look at the fMRI scans from Mathieu Ricard to be able to prove that a human being can do it. You can do it. That's the message I'm here for you to give. You can do it. You can remove fear from your life. You can live a fearless life. It is possible. Whether or not you believe that I can do it, I'm telling you, you can do it. Well, how you do it is to adjust the variables that your subconscious uses to create the fear in the first place. Now, there are two options there. One, you can attack every perception that comes through your mind. You can attack every perception that filters through your mind that could be a threat to you and analyze your way out of it or reappraise your way out of it to say, oh, that's not really a threat, or I don't really have to be afraid of that spider, or I don't really have to be afraid of that snake, as long as I don't get within striking distance of it, etc. That is a constant, never-ending job, and just a hunch, you're probably going to run out of energy to do that. One, scientifically speaking, you only have a certain amount of energy every day to be able to do that. And two, it's a constant, never-ending battle that you will not ever be able to cease doing. Because perceptions come through your mind constantly as your environment changes. You're going to have to address that perception in your mind every time something comes up that makes you a little nervous. Every time. And so adjusting your perception can work in certain instances, right? You're standing at the top of the bungee tower, and you're like, holy shit, and this is how you do it. This is how you get off of the bungee tower. You're like, you reason your way through it. You're like, I know that these bungees are rated for much heavier than I am. And I know no one has ever died here at this location, and they do things right, and they're really good, and this isn't a third-rate outfit, and I'm going to really enjoy this when I'm done. And I just have to have that leap of faith. You reason through your perception, because your fear could be huge at that point, looking down at such a great height. I mean, that's a natural, inborn, babies have that. Babies have fear of great differences in height, right? It's just wired into us because it's a body protection thing. It's a self-protection thing. And so you reason your way through it with adjusting your perception. And that's one way to conquer that instance of fear until you simply say, fuck it, and let's go. And you jump in, right? I did that with the Amazon river in Peru, by the way. I was like, there are piranha in there. Fuck it. right over the edge of the canoe into the water. It was awesome. The other side of that, the other option that you have is the more permanent path to fearlessness. And that is rewriting your self-map en masse and seeing yourself as a different person and seeing yourself as the true existence that you are beneath all of this mind's illusion of you, this mind's illusion of self that is there to help create your emotions and protect you, right? But that we know is not the real you. And this is critical, because if you want the single, solitary, guaranteed to work path on reducing fear from your life, you adjust this thing over here. You adjust your mind's sense of self. You get a deeper understanding of who and what you are, and the things that can touch you and the things that can't touch you. And I'm telling you right now, there's absolutely nothing that can touch you at the deepest level. There's nothing that can threaten you at the deepest level of your existence. And once you find that, then there is nothing in the world that can harm you or damage you or devalue you or threaten you. And that is the path of living a fearless life, because your perception comes in, and then the perception has to have a threat to self, a threat to something in your self map. Something has to be available to potentially be threatened or devalued for you to have a fear response. But at the point, maybe this thing is a lot cleaner than it used to be, or a lot bigger than it used to be, a lot more infinite than it used to be. Now you're talking about the perceptions that used to bother you, that used to create fear within you, can no longer touch you. Even that lightning strike that just happened outside, right? If you understand your existence to be beyond your body, which, by the way, scientifically, we're talking about being able to prove that your existence may be beyond your body and that consciousness may have a large non-local part of it. If you want to understand a little bit more about that stuff, you can read this is the red book, but you can read the blue book, Mind Hacking Happiness, that talks about the science of consciousness going non-local and us tapping into non-local consciousness and the portion of you being outside of your body that you interact with via the microtubules of your neurons in your brain, right? So consciousness still comes through your brain, but at the same time, you're accessing non-local consciousness outside of it. That's scientifically viable at this point. If you can understand yourself and feel yourself and experience yourself as something more than this, something quite larger, something more infinite, something more untouchable, that you've actually felt, that you've actually experienced, then all of a sudden the things that used to worry you and the things that used to fear you, of whatever it was, the project not going well at work, or you being punched in the face by this really scary, ugly dude, or losing all your possessions, which you no longer really identify with because you're much more than that. Those fears go away, and you're able to live your life in a much more fearless space. And you're able to take the risks, the calculated risks that can make your life epic. That's what being fearless is all about. And that's the only path to fearlessness. That's the only path to living a courageous life, is redefining this. There is no other path. There is no other strategy. If somebody tells you to try to build up your confidence or, build up your self-esteem, and that's all bullshit. It's all bullshit, and it's all constant maintenance, and it's all constant management. And you're going to run out of steam, and you're going to revert back to your existing wiring that's firing on all cylinders even while you're asleep, that's trying to protect you in your dreams and creating fear in your dreams. But at the point you redefine this, that changes the ballgame. Because your equation of emotion works 50% of 100% of the emotional responses you're going to have, including 100% of the fear responses you will ever have, 50% of that is created by this. If you don't have that, there is no more fear. Period. End of story. It's how the nervous system works. Once you hack your nervous system by hacking the variables underneath in the subconscious layer of your mind that it uses to then create your emotional conflict, your emotional strife, including all of the fear you've ever experienced in your whole life, fear can literally go away permanently. Because once you define this and wipe this clean and rewrite it, it's game over for fear. Good enough message for today, I think. If you want to understand more about how to do that stuff, you can pick up Mind Hacking Happiness. I explain the neuroscience, the mind science, all the definitions of all your emotions are in this book, how it works. Once you get a good view of how it works within your mind, that dumps you into this place called meta-awareness where you can take control of your mind. It's like waking up from a daydream. And you take control of your mind at that point and change what your mind is doing. And there's also a cheap trick of neuroscience that your right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, your medial prefrontal cortex will actually shut down the limbic system in real time and turn your fear off if you understand exactly where it's coming from and look at the variables that are creating your fear even in the heat of the moment. It's amazing. Fear sucks. You need to understand it. You need to take control of it. You need to alter the variables that exist within your subconscious mind that create it. And you need to remove it from your existence, and it is possible. You can remove fear from your life entirely. And that is the only way you will live a fearless existence. But man, life is epic after you do. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Peace.
Gunga.